First off, Rogers Sportsnet has now been renamed Rogers Arash.
Right.
He's everywhere. Chris Johnston, also, what you heard the dulcet tones.
You
of Chris
feel like
Johnston.
you were misrepresented in that sound on tape, as the kids call it?
I feel like I could have been saying they have a chance to sit down with them, and they just like clip it and like
The Leafs have a chance here.
they just like blare it. But
Hey, if there's someone on this desk who knows what it's like to not be taken out of context, it's this guy right here. All right, let's go to July 1st. John Tavares, I begged John on national television earlier in the show, just let us know what you're doing, man.
Yeah.
We can make the show all about you. I'm still betting on a return of the Isles. That 8th year is everything. Chris Johnston, how do you think this ends for John Tavares?
I don't think it's ending with the return of the Isles. I mean, that we're at the point now that everyone thought would never happen. I mean, the reason this story didn't take on more of a life, I think, the last even week or two, is that everyone just assumed he was going back to the Isles to take an 8-year deal. And sitting here after 6 p.m. Eastern on Friday night, I think it's becoming way less likely that that's the outcome. And the question to me then is, it going to be the Sharks or the Leafs, which is two different sort of circumstances, but I believe that those are the two teams that he's choosing between.
So how did the Sharks and the Leafs then rise to the top?
Well, they've been there ever since the beginning, Tim, and I think it really comes down to lifestyle, and this is where it's hard to handicap it because, we don't occupy that space between John's ears in terms of what he wants to do. But, I mean, they're two teams that have tons of cap space for next season anyway, in the Leafs' case. They can add him without taking anything away, which isn't something the other teams in the mix can really do. And they're two teams that could win a Stanley Cup with John Tavares, I believe. So, those two things. And look, the home aspect has appeal. I think the Northern California chilled out, go hang out with Joe Thornton and the bunch.
Great internet in San Jose.
Great internet.
Great internet service.
And I think that those two things hold some appeal to him, and I don't know which way he's going to go with it.
We saw the video. Arash was there, but we, in all seriousness, we did see a bunch of video guys walking in and out of CAA in Los Angeles. And CJ, I don't know about you, and Timmy, I don't know about you. When I saw John Cooper and Steve Yzerman go in, like I hadn't thought about it in this way, but I'm like, boy, those two could put together a good pitch. Like I could see those two going in there. I could hear John Cooper read the phone book, and Yzerman's got the resume. I'm a little surprised in some of the speculation it's not Tampa. Now, this could all change in the next hour, and we're all like, oh, he's going to Tampa. Who the hell knows? Why do you think Tampa isn't up in the front running pack with maybe a San Jose or an Islanders or a Leafs?
Just because they have to do so much jockeying with their roster now to add him, and I think if you're John Tavares, you got to weigh what does it look like, who gets moved out to make room for me, and it just isn't as natural of a fit. I don't think, they're also on that third day. It felt very much the way that was structured, the interview periods Monday to Wednesday, that it went from most likely to least likely. And, I don't sense that they were ever top of mind. But look, there could be a surprise here. I mean, we're all grasping at straws. I mean, it's been very quiet from his side for the last, basically the last 6 hours, which is unusual. So, I believe something's happening. Likely whittling down that list, and whether we find out tonight or tomorrow,
it's getting good, man.
Well, it's fine. Look, this doesn't happen in hockey. I mean, look, it's
happens
happened
in basketball every year.
Right.
This time in hockey, I mean, we just have to point back to Stamkos, but it happens few and far between. This might be the greatest unrestricted free agent to hit the market, if indeed he does hit the market. Let me just ask you this, because there's a lot of people obviously in this country who want to know about the Leafs. How much would they have to do if indeed they were able to bring in John Tavares? Because Sid still looks back at that back line and says, if you want to be a Stanley Cup contender, you probably have to get better on defense, even if you add Tavares.
Well, there's a couple things here. They have the cap space to make more moves for this coming season, even with John Tavares. I mean, even if they're paying him $12 million, and if they pay William Nylander 7 or 8 because they have to do his contract this year, they still have money to spend on players. And so for this coming season, they're in a. I mean, hockey will never probably have a super team just with the cap and the complexities of the sport, but they're in a position to have a super forward group for one season. And so I think that the answer to that is that they're going to try to win 6-5. And there probably isn't a perfect solution coming on the blue line for the Leafs, but when you're rolling out, hypothetically, Matthews, Tavares, Kadri, and you have the wingers they have, I mean, every line would be well-serviced on the sides. I mean, there's just not that many teams in the league, if they stay healthy, that could compete with that. So I think they have a chance to win in a way teams don't win, because you can't usually get that much of a collection of talent.
Yeah.
So many other things going on here. Let's go to Winnipeg for a second. Where do things stand between Paul Stastny and the Jets?
Well, he's very much in play for them, and I think that if we're handicapping his situation, he's likely to return to Winnipeg, I believe. You know, the trouble for the Jets, of course, is they have the opposite problem right now. They're having an ultimate cap crunch this summer, and so some money is going to have to be shipped out ultimately for them to retain Paul Stastny. They don't have to do it necessarily by Sunday, because you're allowed to go over the cap by 10% in the summertime. So, you know, they could sign him right as the market opens. But, you know, you see Steve Mason's name out there in trade rumors. I think Matthew Perreault is a player they like, but, you know, could be an odd man out, just making a little over $4 million. And you know, so where it stands right now is I think that he's likely to be back, and they're going to be active on the trade front to create the room to make it happen.
Does Erik Karlsson start the year as a member of the Ottawa Senators?
I don't see it. You know, I really, you know, it's been kind of quiet on the front with him. I mean, certainly different than what we had at the trade deadline, where it was very open that he was out there. And you know, I do believe that the Senators have to move him, you know, especially when they get to this point and find out that he's not going to sign an extension with them. I mean, bringing him back next year, I mean, look, there's a couple dynamics. I mean, their first-round pick's going to Colorado, so that's, I mean, if you're them, obviously they need to be competitive. They don't want that to become too high of a pick that goes the other way to complete the Matt Duchene trade. But, you know, with everything that's gone on, I think it's unlikely he's back with the Senators, and you know, there still seems to be a fit with Vegas there. That's sort of like the whisper that won't go away. So, you know, that'll probably take center stage, I would think, after, you know, the opening day of free agency.
I remember a year ago at this time, expansion draft just ends, and we're like, well, they're going to trade James Neal. And they're going to trade this person. And then
well, they were going to.
Mark
That was the
got
plan.
dealt, and like just an amazing, complete 180 on how we're looking at that franchise. But that's a conversation for maybe another day, Timmy. Where's LeBron James going?
The Raptors?
It's amazing how no one flinched in the room. Like no one's like, ah, there's.
The Lakers? I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool. I just wonder if you heard anything.
Who's the one guy?
It seems like all my Twitter feed says the Lakers. That's
I'm with you.
Who's the one guy that no one's talking about that should be talking about?
John Tavares. I mean, look, it's such a.
It seems so funny. Like we were talking about this earlier. Like once you get Pat, like James Van Riemsdyk is probably the consensus second best unrestricted free agent. And if Tavares re-signs with the Islanders, then he is the best unrestricted free agent out there. And to me, that lends you to a bunch of different other things like trades. Like maybe we see an RFA offer sheet if that's what you're paying for Ryan O'Reilly in a trade. Like there's a bunch of things out there, but is there any one person among the mix? Is it Pacioretty? Is it Bergevin? Like who might be able to kind of upset the apple cart here and throw us a curveball?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at offer sheets specifically, and there's a lot of reasons why they don't really work, because usually to get the guy, you have to give a contract that's bad. So you have to give up a whole bunch of draft picks as the compensation, and then you're bringing on a player with likely a bad contract, even if you like the player. So I think that there's some disincentive there. But you know, one of the interesting things about Winnipeg is that Jacob Trouba is an RFA there, and you know, if there were ever a candidate to at least receive an offer sheet, it's not to say the Jets wouldn't match. I mean, that could be someone, you know, that gets targeted for that. You know, I even wonder about William Nylander. There's been some whispers out there that someone might try that with him. I think it's kind of pointless because the Leafs do have a huge amount of cap space and no reason not to match.
Well, but it's after this year, right?
Yes, but they only have. I mean, you only have to worry about this season. I mean, next year, look, if the Leafs get Tavares, next year we're going to spend the whole season talking about who isn't going to be there.
What the hell they're going to do?
What are they going to do to make this work? But you know, I feel like that's a problem for another day. You try to win the Cup this year.
Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, our free agency coverage begins here on Sportsnet. I mean, he's here all day tomorrow anyway, most of the day Sunday, so you're chained to the building, right? You're not leaving.
Yeah, I don't get a month off like you.
Well, I think it's more. It might be.
There's a bunch of buttons.
What's your month going to look like?
It might actually.
What's my month going to look like?
Might.
Picture me in a Speedo.
Like, is it just going to be track pants and
track pants?
ratty T-shirts?
Oh, my God.
I have an audio version of his entire month.
That sums it all up.
That's about
Bodily noises, you name it. Thanks, brother. Chris Johnston of Sportsnet.ca. Follow him on Twitter. It is going to be a busy couple of days.